Mom, I got the email. I'm graduating with honors. My son Michael's voice crackled through my phone speaker as I scrubbed the executive bathroom on the 32nd floor. The vinyl gloves squeaked against the porcelain sink. That's wonderful, honey. I knew you could do it. I pressed the phone between my ear and shoulder, continuing to spray and wipe. The clock showed 11:30 p.m. The ceremony is next Friday at 2 hours. You'll be there, right? I paused, thinking of the cleaning schedule. I'd need to rearrange with Maria to cover my afternoon shift. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Great. And Mom? His voice lowered. Maybe you could wear that navy dress? The one Aunt Celia gave you? It looks professional. My hand stilled on the mirror. I understood what he wasn't saying. Of course, I replied, keeping my tone light. I want you to be proud. After we hung up, I stared at my reflection in the freshly cleaned mirror. At 48, my face showed the years of sacrifice. The night shifts cleaning offices while studying for my business degree, the weekends missed with Michael to complete my MBA, the promotions I'd turned down at my day job to maintain the flexibility for my night work. Also, my son could attend a prestigious university without drowning in debt. What Michael didn't know was that 3 years ago, I had stopped being just the night cleaner at Lumora Innovations. My business proposals had caught the attention of the former CEO, Eleanor Grant. Under her mentorship, I had risen through the ranks, now serving as the chief strategy officer by day while maintaining my cleaning job at night. Only Eleanor and the board knew of my dual identity, a requirement I had insisted on as I worked toward my ultimate goal. I continued with my cleaning cart to the next floor, thinking about the way Michael had sounded on the phone. Since he'd been accepted to Westmore University, something had shifted between us. The calls home became less frequent, the visits shorter. I'd attributed it to the natural independence that comes with college, but lately, a nagging feeling had grown that there was more to it. The next morning, in my corner office on the 40th floor, I reviewed the final acquisition papers. In 2 weeks, I would be announced as the new CEO of Lumora Innovations following Eleanor's retirement. Our company had just secured funding for an exciting new graduate recruitment program at several universities, including Westmore, where Michael was graduating with a business degree. Diana, are you ready for the board meeting? Eleanor asked, appearing at my door. I closed the folder and smiled. As ready as I'll ever be. Have you told your son yet? About any of this? She gestured around the expansive office. I shook my head. I wanted to wait until everything was official. And the other thing? The night job? He knows I clean offices. He just doesn't know which ones or that I've continued even after... I trailed off. Eleanor gave me a pointed look. Diana, you're about to become the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Don't you think it's time to give up the cleaning cart? After the announcement, I promised. It keeps me grounded. Reminds me where I came from. But the truth was more complicated. Somewhere along the way, the secret had grown too big, the reveal too daunting. How do you tell your son that you've been living a double life for years? The graduation ceremony was held in Westmore's grand auditorium. I arrived early, wearing the navy dress as requested, my hair neatly styled. I had taken the afternoon off from both my jobs. Michael stood with a group of friends when I approached. His smile tightened as he saw me. Mom, you made it. He gave me a brief hug. These are my friends, Carter, Alicia, and Elliot. It's lovely to meet you all. I smiled warmly. Michael's told us about you, said Alicia, with what seemed like genuine friendliness. All good things, I hope? There was an awkward pause. Carter cleared his throat. We should find our seats. Michael turned to me. I need to line up with my department. There are seats in the back that might be more comfortable, less crowded. He pointed to a distant section. Before you go, I reached into my purse. I have something for you. I handed him a small box containing cufflinks that had belonged to his grandfather. Michael opened it, his expression softening momentarily. Thanks, Mom. I'll wear them today. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Listen, there's going to be a reception after with some corporate recruiters. It's pretty exclusive, just graduates and professionals. I understand, I said, recognizing the dismissal. I'm so proud of you, Michael. As he walked away to join his classmates, I heard one of them ask, Is that your mom? What does she do again? Michael's response was too quiet for me to hear, but I caught his uncomfortable glance back at me before he replied. I found a seat in the back row as suggested, watching as proud parents filled the front sections. As the ceremony began, I observed the stage where the university president and various dignitaries sat. Among them was Eleanor Grant, there to announce Lumora's new graduate program partnership with Westmore. When Michael crossed the stage to receive his diploma, I stood up, applauding with all my heart. From the distance, he was a figure in a black gown, indistinguishable from his peers, except for the slight hesitation as he scanned the audience. His eyes passed over the back rows without pausing. After the ceremony, I waited outside the auditorium, hoping to congratulate him properly. When I spotted him amid a crowd of graduates, I waved. He saw me but continued talking with his friends and what appeared to be a recruiter in a sharp suit. My phone buzzed with a text. At recruitment mixer. Talk later. I stared at the message, a heaviness settling in my chest. In that moment, my decision crystallized. The announcement of my CEO position was scheduled for 2 weeks from now, but perhaps it was time for some truths to come to light. As I walked to my car, another text came through. This one from Eleanor. Diana, something's come up. We need to accelerate the timeline. Board wants to announce your position at the corporate summit next week. Westmore recruiters will be there. Call me. I looked back at the university building where my son was networking, unaware that his world was about to change. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of hiding my success to spare his pride, I now faced the prospect of revealing it in the most public way possible. What would he say when he discovered that the mother he had relegated to the back row was about to become one of the most powerful executives in the industry? And more importantly, would our relationship survive the revelation? The week following Michael's graduation passed in a blur of meetings and preparations. As I sat in my office reviewing my keynote speech for the corporate summit, my phone lit up with a text from Michael. Got an interview with Lumora Innovations. Their recruiter was impressed at the mixer. First round next Tuesday. My heart skipped a beat. This was exactly what I'd feared, and perhaps secretly hoped for. Michael was interviewing at my company, completely unaware that in less than a week, I would be announced as its new CEO. I typed back, "That's wonderful news. We should celebrate. Dinner tomorrow?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Can't tomorrow. Prepping for the interview. Maybe next weekend? I set my phone down, the familiar sting of rejection settling in. Through my office window, I could see the skyline of the city where I'd raised my son alone after his father left when Michael was just 5. Every sacrifice had been for him. Yet somewhere along the way, a gulf had formed between us, one I hadn't known how to bridge. "Ms. Brown?" My assistant knocked on my open door. "The board is waiting in the conference room." I gathered my notes and followed her down the hallway of executive offices. Inside the conference room, Eleanor sat at the head of the table with the board members arranged around her. "Diana, perfect timing," Eleanor said. "We were just discussing the summit announcement." James Whitfield, our chief marketing officer, spoke up. "We've arranged for coverage in all the major business publications. This is going to make waves. First female CEO of Lumora, with your unique background. It's an incredible story." "Speaking of which," said Vivian Bailey, our longest-serving board member, "we'd like to include some of your personal journey in the press materials. Your night job, your education path, it's inspiring." I felt a twinge of unease. I'd prefer to keep my personal history private for now. Eleanor caught my eye. She knew about Michael, about my reluctance to expose my double life before speaking with him. "Diana has her reasons," Eleanor said firmly. "The focus should be on her vision for the company, not her biography." The meeting continued, but my mind kept drifting to Michael, to his upcoming interview, to the summit where everything would change. I needed to tell him before he found out from someone else. Dorsai. The following evening, I found myself in the familiar routine of my night job. Despite my executive position, I had continued cleaning 3 nights a week. Tonight, I was on the 37th floor, where the HR department was located. It was after 9 p.m., and the offices were empty except for the occasional late worker. As I emptied the trash bins in the recruitment office, I noticed a stack of resumes on the desk labeled Westmore Candidates. I knew I shouldn't look, but I couldn't help myself. I flipped through until I found Michael's resume and application. My eyes widened as I read it. Under family background, he had written, Father, James Brown, Regional Director, Landcraft Technologies. Mother, deceased. The trash bin I was holding clattered to the floor. My hands trembled as I reread the words. Deceased. My son had written me off as dead. Hello? Is someone there? A voice called from down the hall. I quickly replaced the resume, gathered my cleaning supplies, and stepped into the hallway, my uniform and cart identifying me as just another invisible night worker. Just cleaning, I said to the young HR associate who had emerged from a nearby office. She barely glanced at me. Oh, right. I'll be gone soon. I nodded and pushed my cart toward the elevators, my mind reeling. Not only had Michael been embarrassed by my occupation, but he had actually fabricated an entirely different life story, one where his mother was dead and his absent father was a successful executive. Once in the elevator, I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. I had planned to call Michael tonight, to arrange a meeting where I could explain everything before the summit. But this discovery changed everything. The pain was too raw, the betrayal too deep. Back in the maintenance closet, I changed out of my cleaning uniform. My phone buzzed with a notification, an email from Eleanor with the final schedule for the summit. Michael's interview was scheduled for Tuesday morning, while the summit would begin on Tuesday afternoon, with my CEO announcement as the closing keynote. I had less than 5 days to decide how to handle this impossible situation. Ostaprad or Sabar Monday evening found me in my apartment, preparing for the next day. My CEO announcement outfit, a tailored charcoal suit, hung on my closet door. Next to it was the cleaning uniform I would wear one last time in the morning, having arranged to clean the conference rooms where the interviews would be held. My phone rang. Eleanor, are you ready for tomorrow? She asked. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, though my voice betrayed my uncertainty. Diana, I know you're worried about Michael, but this secrecy has gone on long enough. You've earned this position. You deserve recognition for your hard work, not just from the company but from your son. He listed me as deceased on his job application, Eleanor. The words came out before I could stop them. There was a long pause. What? I explained what I had found in the HR office. I don't know what to say, Eleanor finally responded. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted. Part of me wants to confront him during his interview. Another part wants to wait and see his face when I'm announced as CEO. And a small hurt part wants to withdraw his application entirely. This isn't just about you and Michael anymore, Eleanor reminded me gently. Lumora needs you as its leader. Whatever you decide regarding your son, don't let it compromise what you've worked so hard to achieve. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at old photos of Michael. As a toddler with a gap-toothed smile, as a middle schooler receiving an academic award, as a teenager at his high school graduation with his arm awkwardly around my shoulders. When had he started seeing me as someone to be ashamed of rather than proud of? I picked up my phone and, before I could talk myself out of it, called him. Mom? He sounded surprised. Everything okay? Yes, I took a deep breath. I wanted to wish you luck tomorrow, for your interview. Oh, thanks. There was background noise, music, voices. I'm actually out with some friends right now, celebrating early. Of course. I won't keep you, I hesitated. Michael, no matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know that everything I've ever done has been for you. Okay. He sounded confused, slightly impatient. That's nice of you to say. I love you, Michael. Love you too, Mom. I gotta go. The line went dead. I set down my phone, made my decision, and began to revise my keynote speech for the summit. Tuesday morning arrived bright and clear. I entered Lumora headquarters through the service entrance at 6 a.m., my cleaning cart prepared for one final shift. As I moved through the executive floor, polishing the conference table where Michael would soon be interviewed, I found myself wondering if I was making the right choice. The HR director walked in, startled to find someone already there. Just finishing up, I said, keeping my head down. Thank you, she replied absently, setting down a folder. The first candidate arrives at 9 WA. I nodded and wheeled my card out, heading for the maintenance room where my other life waited. In my locker was the suit I would wear to become CEO of Lumora Innovations. But first, I had one more role to play, one that would determine the future of my relationship with my son. As I hung up my cleaning uniform for the last time, my phone chimed with a text from Michael. Heading into Lumora now. Building's impressive. Wish me luck. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the reply button. Whatever happened next would change everything between us. There would be no going back. I stared at myself in the executive bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman who looked back at me. Gone was the cleaning uniform, replaced by a crisp white blouse and tailored pants, my transition outfit. The full CEO suit would come later, for the summit's closing keynote. My phone vibrated with a message from Vivian Bailey. Interview's underway. Your son is third in line. Observation room ready per your request. I had made my decision at dawn. I wouldn't confront Michael directly during his interview. Instead, I would observe from behind the one-way glass, a silent witness to whatever performance he would give. As I made my way to the observation room on the 37th floor, I passed employees who nodded respectfully, already treating me with the deference due to their incoming CEO. How strange that the same people who had once walked past me without a glance when I pushed my cleaning cart now stepped aside to let me pass. The observation room was small, with a clear view of the interview panel. Vivian Bailey, our HR director Samantha Wells, and James Whitfield. They sat at one end of a gleaming conference table, the same one I had polished earlier that morning. The first two candidates came and went. Then Michael entered. My breath caught. In his navy suit with the family cufflinks I had given him, he looked so grown up, so much like his father in his confidence and poise. He shook hands firmly with each interviewer and took his seat. Mr. Brown, Samantha began, your resume is quite impressive. Dean's List, President of the Business Leadership Association, internship at Crawford Financial. What would you say best prepared you for a position at Lumora? Michael sat up straighter. I believe I've been preparing for this opportunity my entire life. My father always emphasized the importance of strategic thinking and leadership in business. My fingers curled around the armrest of my chair. His father had abandoned us when Michael was 5, sending birthday cards and occasional checks, but little else. Speaking of family influence, James said, glancing at the resume, I see your father is a regional director at Landcraft. Has his career path influenced your own aspirations? Michael smiled confidently. Absolutely. Watching him climb the corporate ladder taught me the value of networking, presentation skills, and strategic career moves. He's been my role model. Every word was a dagger. I had been the one attending parent-teacher conferences, helping with homework, working multiple jobs to afford his education. I had been the one encouraging his dreams, praising his accomplishments, supporting him through failures. And what about other influences? Vivian asked. I recognized the gentle probe. She knew my story, knew the truth about Michael's background. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face. I lost my mother when I was young, but that experience taught me resilience and independence. The room seemed to spin around me. He hadn't simply omitted my existence or my occupation. He had created an entire fictional narrative where I had died, and his absent father had raised him. I'm sorry to hear that, Vivian said, her eyes briefly darting toward the one-way glass. That must have been difficult. It shaped who I am, Michael replied, his voice taking on a practiced solemnity. I learned early that life doesn't always go as planned, but with determination and the right connections, you can overcome anything. The interview continued, with Michael answering questions about his skills, experience, and career goals. He was articulate and prepared, exactly the kind of candidate Lumora would want. If he had been anyone else's son, I would have been impressed. When asked about his greatest weakness, Michael paused thoughtfully. I can sometimes be too focused on appearances and perception. I've been working to remember that substance matters more than style. The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. Here he was, fabricating his entire family history to maintain appearances. As the interview wrapped up, Samantha asked the final question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Mr. Brown? Michael's answer was immediate. In a leadership position, hopefully here at Lumora. I admire the company's recent growth and innovation strategies. In fact, I'm particularly interested in the new initiatives that will be announced at today's summit. He smiled. I've already secured a seat as a Westmore representative. My stomach dropped. Michael would be at the summit. He would witness my keynote and CEO announcement. The revelation I had planned to control was now inevitable and imminent. After Michael left, the interviewers discussed his performance briefly, their voices coming through the speaker in my observation room. He's polished. I'll give him that, James said. Technical skills are solid too. Something feels off, though, Samantha replied. That family background. Didn't you say his file had some discrepancies, Vivian? Vivian nodded thoughtfully. Let's just say I have questions about his authenticity. Diana will want to weigh in on this one personally. They gathered their notes and exited, unaware that I remained frozen in the observation room, trying to process what I had just witnessed. By noon, I had retreated to Eleanor's office, soon to be mine, to prepare for the summit. My keynote speech lay open on the desk, but I couldn't focus on the words. All I could think about was Michael's performance, his casual erasure of my existence, his elevation of a father who had barely participated in his upbringing. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I called. Eleanor entered, her expression sympathetic. Vivian told me about the interview. Are you okay? I shook my head. I don't know what's worse, that he's ashamed of me, or that he's created this fantasy where his father is the dedicated parent and I'm gone. Eleanor sat across from me. What are you going to do? The original plan stands, I said, more firmly than I felt. I give my keynote, I'm announced as CEO, and Michael learns the truth along with everyone else. And after? What then? I looked down at my speech. I don't know. That depends on him, I suppose. Diana, Eleanor said gently, this speech is fine, but it's not you, not the real you. After what you witnessed today, are you sure you want to keep playing it safe? She was right. The speech I had prepared was businesslike and impersonal, focused on growth strategies and market positions. It revealed nothing of my journey, nothing of the woman who had cleaned offices by night while climbing the corporate ladder by day. Rewrite it, Eleanor advised. Tell your story. Own your path. If Michael is going to learn the truth today, make sure he learns all of it. After she left, I stared at the speech for a long moment before deleting the entire document. Then I began typing, letting the words flow from a place of raw truth. The corporate summit was Lumora's largest annual event, held in the company's grand auditorium. As I stood backstage, I could see through a gap in the curtain that the room was filled with executives, partners, media, and university representatives. Somewhere in that audience sat Michael, still unaware that his worlds were about to collide. Eleanor was at the podium, delivering her farewell address as CEO. And so, after 15 remarkable years, I am stepping down with complete confidence in Lumora's future under new leadership. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure others could hear it. In moments, I would walk onto that stage, and everything would change. This transition represents not just a change in leadership, but a testament to what is possible when talent is recognized regardless of its origin. Eleanor continued. It gives me extraordinary pleasure to introduce you to the new Chief Executive Officer of Lumora Innovations, a woman whose journey exemplifies perseverance, intelligence, and unwavering determination. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and prepared to step forward. Please welcome to the stage, Diana Brown. As I walked out into the blinding lights, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Through the sea of faces, I searched for one in particular, and then I found him, 5 rows back, his expression transforming from polite interest to utter shock as he recognized his supposedly deceased mother taking the stage as the new CEO of Lumora Innovations. Our eyes locked across the crowded room. In that moment, the applause, the cameras, the significance of my achievement, all of it faded away. There was only my son, his face a mask of disbelief and something else I couldn't quite identify. Was it shame, anger, fear? As I approached the podium, I set aside my newly written speech and gripped the edges of the lectern. The truth I had hidden for so long was now exposed, but the most difficult revelation was yet to come. "Thank you, Eleanor," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "And thank you all for this warm welcome." I paused, my gaze finding Michael again. He sat frozen in his seat while those around him continued to applaud. "Before I share my vision for Lumora's future," I continued, "I want to tell you a story. It's about a woman who started with nothing but determination and the unexpected path that led her to this podium today." Michael's face had drained of color. As I prepared to reveal the full truth of my journey, night job and all, I wondered if the bridge between us had been irreparably broken, or if, just maybe, it could still be rebuilt from the ashes of his fabricated narrative and my years of secrecy. "My journey to this stage began in a small apartment above a laundromat," I said, my voice carrying across the hushed auditorium. "As a single mother with a 5-year-old son, I worked days as an administrative assistant and nights cleaning offices. Each word felt like stepping further into the light after years in shadow." The teleprompter displayed the carefully crafted corporate speech I had originally prepared, but I ignored it completely. Education was my ladder. I took classes during lunch breaks and after my son went to sleep. Over 8 years, I earned my business degree, then my MBA, one night class at a time. In the audience, I could see Michael's rigid posture, his clenched jaw. Around him, people were engaged, nodding appreciatively at what they perceived as an inspiring success story. They couldn't see what I could, the quiet devastation on my son's face as his carefully constructed facade crumbled with each word I spoke. 12 years ago, I joined Lumora as part of the night cleaning staff. The executive offices I cleaned after hours became a kind of classroom. I studied the strategy documents left on desks, analyzed the presentation notes on whiteboards. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't typical CEO origin story material. One night, I left a note on a strategy brief, pointing out a flaw in the Asian market expansion plan. The next day, there was a response requesting more input. For months, I engaged in this anonymous dialogue, until finally, Eleanor Grant, our visionary outgoing CEO, set a trap to discover who was leaving these insights. Eleanor, seated on stage behind me, smiled at the memory. When she found me in my cleaning uniform, rather than firing me for reading confidential documents, she offered me a junior analyst position. That was 9 years ago. I continued to clean 3 nights a week, partly because I needed the extra income to support my son's education, but eventually, because it kept me grounded, connected to every level of this company. I paused, taking a sip of water. The audience was captivated now, but my focus remained on Michael. His expression had shifted from shock to something more complex, a mixture of confusion, embarrassment, and the dawning realization that the mother he had fictionally buried was not only alive but about to become his potential boss. Some of you in this room have known me only as Diana Brown, Chief Strategy Officer. Others have known me only as Diana the Night Cleaner. Very few have known both sides, a division I maintained by choice. I looked directly at Michael now. I kept these worlds separate to protect someone I love from what I perceived as embarrassment or shame. I convinced myself it was for his benefit. But secrets, even well-intentioned ones, create barriers. They prevent authentic connection. Michael's eyes widened slightly, recognizing the words were meant for him. Today, as I accept this incredible honor of becoming Lumora's CEO, I am committing to authenticity in all aspects of my life. No more divisions, no more masks. Success means nothing if we can't be honest about who we are and where we came from. The room erupted in applause. Business leaders love authenticity, at least the carefully curated kind I was offering. But this wasn't for them. It was for my son and for myself. I completed my address with my vision for Lumora's future, speaking with genuine passion about inclusive leadership and recognizing talent at all levels. When I finished, the standing ovation was immediate and enthusiastic. As I stepped away from the podium, my eyes searched for Michael, but his seat was empty. The reception following the keynote was a blur of congratulations and introductions. I smiled and shook hands mechanically, my attention divided as I scanned the room for any sign of Michael. He left, Eleanor said quietly, appearing at my elbow with a glass of champagne. One of the Westmore representatives said he claimed a family emergency. The irony wasn't lost on me. Did I make a mistake, Eleanor? Revealing everything so publicly? No, she said firmly. You told your truth. What happens next is up to him. As the reception wound down, I checked my phone repeatedly. No calls, no texts. The silent treatment was familiar. Michael had perfected it during his teenage years. But this time felt different. This wasn't about breaking curfew or questioning his choice of friends. This was about something fundamental. The story he had created about his life, and the mother he had written out of it. By evening, I was back in my apartment. My celebration dinner with Eleanor canceled in favor of waiting for some response from my son. The CEO announcement had made the evening news, and my phone was flooded with congratulatory messages from colleagues and old friends. But nothing from the one person whose response mattered most. At 9:30 p.m., a knock at my door startled me. I opened it to find Michael standing in the hallway, still wearing his interview suit, though his tie was loosened and his hair disheveled. "Can I come in?" His voice was strained. I stepped aside to let him enter the apartment he'd grown up in, but had visited less and less frequently since starting college. "Congratulations," he said stiffly, standing awkwardly in the living room, on the CEO position. "Thank you." An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked, his voice cracking slightly. "Which part? That I was more than a cleaner? That I was being considered for CEO? Or why I kept cleaning even after I didn't need to financially?" "Any of it. All of it." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of his childhood frustration that it made my heart ache. "I thought I knew who you were. And I thought I knew who you were," I replied quietly. "Until I saw your job application." He flinched. "You saw that? I cleaned the HR offices, Michael. I emptied the trash under the desk where your resume sat, where you listed me as deceased." His face flushed. "I can explain." "Please do." I sat down on the couch, suddenly tired. "Explain to me why you killed off your mother and elevated your absent father to executive status." Michael remained standing, his posture defensive. "You don't understand what it's like. At Westmore, everyone comes from money, from connections. Their parents are executives, lawyers, doctors. When they asked about my family, I couldn't tell them my mother was a cleaning lady." Each word stung, but I kept my expression neutral. "So instead, I was dead. And your father, who sent birthday cards at best, became your successful role model? It was just easier that way." He looked down. "Once I started the story, I couldn't take it back. I had to keep going with it." "Even on your job application? Even in a formal interview?" He had no answer for that. "Do you know what I remember most about your childhood, Michael?" I asked, my voice softening. "How proud you were to tell your elementary school friends that your mom worked in a tall building downtown. You didn't care then that I was cleaning it rather than running it." "I was a kid," he said dismissively. "I didn't understand status then." "And now you understand it so well that you'd rather have a dead mother than one who worked hard to give you opportunities?" Michael sat down heavily in the armchair across from me. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Help me understand." He was quiet for a long moment. "When I got to Westmore, everything changed. I saw how the world really works. It's not just about hard work. It's about connections, about fitting in with the right people. My roommate's father was a partner at a consulting firm. My friend Alicia's mother runs a tech company. And there I was, scholarship kid with a single mom who cleaned offices. A single mom who put you through college without debt," I reminded him. "Who supported your internships and extracurriculars. Who never missed a school event." "I know," he said, his voice barely audible. "That's why it was so hard. Because you did everything right, and it still wasn't. It still wasn't enough." The raw honesty of his words hit me like a physical blow. "Not enough for what, Michael?" He looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "To give me the life I thought I wanted. The connections. The network. The respect. And now?" I asked. "Now that your mother, the cleaner, turns out to be a CEO? Am I enough now?" The question hung in the air between us, loaded with years of unspoken hurt and expectation. Michael opened his mouth to respond when my phone rang. Eleanor's ringtone. I hesitated, then answered. Diana, I'm sorry to interrupt your evening, but we have a situation. The Jakarta deal is falling apart. Han is threatening to pull out unless we address his concerns immediately. I checked the time. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Thank you, Eleanor said, relief evident in her voice. Conference room A. After hanging up, I looked at Michael. I have to go. Company emergency. He nodded, standing. Of course. You're the CEO now. This conversation isn't over, I said firmly. I know. He hesitated at the door. Mom? Does everyone at Lumora know now? About your night job? Something in his tone made me pause. Yes, I made it clear in my speech. And they still made you CEO? The question revealed so much about his worldview. His belief that my cleaning job should have disqualified me from leadership. They made me CEO because of my strategic vision and leadership skills, I replied. But they respect me because I understand every level of this company, from the maintenance closets to the boardroom. Michael nodded slowly, processing this. I need to go, I said, reaching for my jacket. But Michael, I'd like you to really think about who you want to be, not what impression you want to make or what story sounds best, who you actually are, and whether that person is someone you can be proud of. As we parted ways on the street outside my apartment building, Michael heading toward the subway and me toward my car, I realized we were at a crossroads. The truth was out, but the real reckoning was yet to come. Would he embrace his authentic history, or would the shame he'd harbored continue to divide us? And after years of my own double life, was I truly ready for the unfiltered honesty I was demanding from him? The Jakarta crisis consumed the next 3 days of my life. As the new CEO, I needed to prove myself immediately, which meant long hours negotiating with our Indonesian partners, reassuring investors, and strategizing with our international team. I barely had time to think about Michael, though his words echoed in quiet moments. It still wasn't enough. By Friday morning, we had salvaged the deal. I sat alone in my new office. Eleanor had officially vacated it after the summit, staring at the cityscape through floor-to-ceiling windows. On my desk sat a framed photo of Michael at his high school graduation, his arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling. Had that smile been genuine? Or had he already begun to see me as someone to overcome, to erase? My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Brown, HR sent up the final candidate evaluations from Tuesday's interviews. I had nearly forgotten. Thank you, Rachel. Please bring them in. She entered with a folder containing assessments of the Westmore graduates, including Michael. I opened it, scanning the evaluations until I found his. Technical skills excellent, communication strong, concerns about integrity and authenticity, recommend further assessment before proceeding. The team had been diplomatic but clear. Michael's fabricated background had raised red flags. I couldn't blame them. Honesty was a core value at Lumora. I initialed the form, indicating I'd reviewed it and set it aside. This particular hiring decision would require careful consideration. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Brown, this is Alicia Smith from the Westmore recruitment event. I'm a friend of Michael's. He's not doing well. Can we meet? It's important. I remembered her from graduation, one of the friends Michael had introduced me to before relegating me to the back row. After a moment's hesitation, I replied, 1:00 p.m., Riverside Cafe? Her response was immediate. I'll be there. Thank you. Riverside Cafe was a small establishment several blocks from Lumora headquarters, far enough that I wouldn't likely encounter colleagues. I arrived wearing sunglasses and a casual blazer, my first attempt at a disguise since becoming a public figure. Alicia was already seated at a corner table, nervously tapping her fingers on a water glass. She stood as I approached, extending her hand. Ms. Brown, thank you for coming. Diana, please, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. You said Michael isn't doing well? She nodded, glancing down at her hands. I've never seen him like this. After the summit, he came back to our apartment building completely shaken. He wouldn't talk about what happened, just locked himself in his room. Your apartment building? Yes. We live in the same complex near campus with several other Westmore graduates. She hesitated. The next morning, I saw the news about your CEO announcement. That's when I understood. A waitress approached, and we paused to order. Just coffee for both of us. Michael hasn't left his apartment in 3 days, Alicia continued once we were alone. He's not answering calls or texts, except one message to me saying he's fine and needs space. I'm worried about him. Have you checked on him in person? Yesterday. He opened the door just enough to tell me he wasn't sick and to please leave him alone. She looked directly at me. Ms. Brown, Diana, I know it's not my place, but what happened? At graduation, he introduced you as, well, not as a CEO. I studied her for a moment, assessing her intentions. Michael has been telling his friends and apparently potential employers that I'm deceased, that his father, who has been largely absent from his life, is a successful executive who raised him. Alicia's eyes widened. What? I had no idea. You seem surprised. I am. He told us his mother worked in business but wasn't able to attend many events because of her schedule. He mentioned you were coming to graduation. He seemed nervous about it, but never. She shook her head in disbelief. This was new information. Apparently, Michael's lies varied depending on the audience. The story changed for the job application, I explained. He must have decided a deceased mother was more advantageous than one he was ashamed of. I don't understand, Alicia said, genuine confusion in her expression. Why would he be ashamed? Even if he only knew you as… before finding out you're a CEO? I worked nights cleaning offices, I said plainly. Including at Lumora, where I continued cleaning even after joining the executive team. It was part of who I am, part of my journey. But Michael saw it differently. Recognition dawned in her eyes. The night I met you at graduation, he was so tense. He kept looking around like he was afraid someone would overhear. He directed me to sit in the back row, I added, after telling me not to embarrass him. Alicia was quiet for a moment, processing this. I know it doesn't mean much coming from me, but Michael wasn't always like this. Freshman year, he talked about you all the time. How hard you worked. How you supported him. It changed sophomore year, after he met Carter and that crowd. Carter? His roommate. Family owns half of Boston, from what I gather. Michael started hanging around Carter's circle. All legacy students, all from money. She hesitated, then continued. He changed. Started pretending he had connections, talking about summer homes that didn't exist. I called him out once, and he said I didn't understand how the world works. That perception creates reality. The coffee arrived, and I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, thinking, why are you telling me this, Alicia? She looked down at her own untouched coffee. Because despite everything, Michael is my friend, and he's in trouble. Not just emotionally. He's burned bridges with his fabricated stories. The Westmore Career Office is investigating discrepancies in his applications. Rumors are spreading. What do you expect me to do? I don't know, she admitted. Help him? Talk to him? He respects you. He always has. Even when he was trying to impress those guys. I considered her words carefully. You said perception creates reality. Is that what Michael believes? I think he did, she replied. Until reality caught up with him at the summit. After leaving Alicia, I drove to Michael's apartment complex instead of returning to the office. The building was modest but well-maintained. Standard graduate housing. I climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked on door 312. No answer. Michael, it's Mom. I know you're in there. Silence. Then the sound of movement. The door opened a crack, revealing my son's unshaven face and rumpled t-shirt. What are you doing here? His voice was hoarse. Checking on you. May I come in? He hesitated, then stepped back, opening the door wider. The apartment was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink, clothes strewn across furniture, laptop open on a coffee table surrounded by empty takeout containers. I've been busy, he said, noticing my survey of the chaos. I can see that. I set my purse down on the only clear chair. Alicia is worried about you. His expression hardened. She went to you? Behind my back? She cares about you. Said you haven't left this apartment in days. I'm fine, he said automatically. Just processing. I nodded, letting silence fill the space between us. Sometimes the best strategy was to wait. Finally, he spoke. I got an email from HR at Lumora yesterday. They've put my application on hold pending further review. He laughed bitterly. That's corporate speak for "we know you lied, you're done." That decision hasn't been made yet, I replied carefully, but it will be. And not just at Lumora. Word gets around. He sank onto the couch. I've ruined everything. Not everything, I said, sitting beside him. But yes, actions have consequences. Lies especially. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Perhaps for the first time in years. Why did you keep cleaning? Once you had the executive job? Was it to embarrass me? The question was so absurd, I almost laughed. Michael, not everything is about you. I kept cleaning because it reminded me where I came from, because it kept me connected to every level of the company I was helping to build. And yes, because I was proud of that work. It put food on our table, put you through school, taught me resilience. I was so angry when I saw you walk on that stage, he admitted quietly. Not just because of the lie being exposed, but because, all this time, you were extraordinary, and I treated you like you were— He couldn't finish. Like I was something to overcome, I supplied. A chapter to close rather than a foundation to build upon. He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I don't know how to fix this. I took his hand, something he hadn't allowed in years. The truth, Michael. Always start with the truth. It's too late. The application, the interviews, my friends. It's never too late to be honest. It might be messy, it might be painful, but it's never too late. He was quiet for a long moment. What about Lumora? My application? That's complicated, I admitted. There's a clear conflict of interest now, but more importantly, there's a matter of integrity that needs to be addressed. You're saying I don't have any. I'm saying you've lost your way, and finding it again starts with being honest. With yourself most of all. Michael leaned back, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. What do I do first? I squeezed his hand. First, you shower and clean this place up. Then, we talk about making amends, starting with the people you've lied to. After that, well, we'll see where truth takes us. As I left his apartment an hour later, after helping him begin to clean both his living space and his conscience, I felt a cautious hope. The bridge between us had been badly damaged, but perhaps not destroyed beyond repair. My phone rang as I reached my car. Eleanor. How's the boy? She asked without preamble. How did you know I was with him? Because I know you, she replied simply. And because you've missed 2 meetings. I'm sorry. Don't be. Some things are more important than quarterly projections. Is he going to be okay? I looked back at the apartment building, thinking of Michael's tearful apology, his shaking hands as he wrote out a list of people he needed to make amends to. I think so, I said. But we have a long road ahead. Well, Eleanor said, her voice softening, if anyone can navigate a difficult path, it's you, Diana. You've been doing it all your life. As I drove back toward Lumora headquarters, I wondered if she was right. The hardest part of leadership isn't making the big decisions. It's guiding others through their own journeys, especially those you love most. Could I help Michael rebuild his integrity while maintaining my own as CEO? And what would happen when those 2 responsibilities inevitably collided? 3 months passed in a whirlwind of corporate strategy meetings, international travel, and press interviews. Being CEO of Lumora Innovations was everything I had worked for and more. Challenging, inspiring, exhausting. But today wasn't about Lumora. Today was about family. I sat in the back of a town car heading toward Westmore University's Business Ethics Center, where a special panel discussion was being held. My phone buzzed with a message from Michael. Nervous but ready. Thank you for coming. I smiled at the screen, thinking of our journey over these past months. After his initial breakdown, Michael had embarked on the difficult path of making amends, first with Alicia and his closer friends, then with the Westmore career counselors, and finally with the Lumora HR department, where he had withdrawn his application and submitted a letter explaining his fabrications. That last step had been particularly difficult for him, admitting his lies to the company I now led. But it had been necessary, not just for his integrity, but for mine as CEO. I couldn't give special treatment to my son, especially after his deception. What had surprised us both was HR Director Samantha Wells's response. "We appreciate your honesty, Mr. Brown. When you're ready to reapply in the future with an accurate resume, we would be willing to reconsider your application based on your merits." It was a small door left open, a possibility of redemption, but Michael had chosen a different path. "Ms. Brown, we've arrived," my driver announced, pulling up to the modern glass building that housed Westmore's Ethics Center. "Thank you, James." I gathered my bag and stepped out into the crisp autumn air. The lecture hall was already filled with students and faculty when I arrived. I slipped into a seat in the middle section, not hiding in the back row this time, but not drawing attention at the front either. This was Michael's moment, not mine. Professor Harriet Lewis, head of the ethics department, approached the podium. "Welcome to our special panel discussion on integrity in professional life. Today, we have 4 speakers from different backgrounds sharing personal experiences of ethical challenges in their careers." She introduced the panelists one by one. A healthcare administrator who had reported billing fraud at his hospital, a journalist who had protected sources at personal cost, a finance executive who had navigated regulatory gray areas, and finally, our last speaker is Michael Brown, a recent Westmore graduate who has chosen to speak candidly about ethical missteps during his time here and the lessons he's learned. Michael is currently working with our community outreach program while applying to graduate programs in educational leadership. My heart swelled with a mixture of pride and anxiety as Michael took his seat at the panel table. Gone was the perfectly polished business student in an expensive suit. Instead, he wore a simple button-down shirt and looked directly at the audience with clear eyes. When it was his turn to speak, he stood and approached the microphone. "Thank you for being here today. This isn't an easy topic for me, but it's an important one." He took a deep breath. 3 months ago, I was on track to join a prestigious corporation with a fabricated personal history. I had created an alternate reality where my mother, who had worked multiple jobs to support me, was deceased, and my largely absent father was my successful role model. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I told these lies because I was ashamed, not of my mother, though that's what I told myself, but of my own insecurity. I couldn't see that her journey, from night cleaner to corporate leader, was more impressive than any fictional narrative I could create. His eyes found mine in the audience, and he gave me a small nod. What I didn't realize until it was almost too late was that integrity isn't just about being honest on applications. It's about honoring your foundations, acknowledging those who helped build you, and standing firmly in your truth, even when that truth isn't what you think others want to hear. For the next 15 minutes, Michael spoke candidly about his ethical failings, the consequences he'd faced, and the process of rebuilding trust. He didn't portray himself as a victim or seek sympathy. Instead, he offered his experience as a cautionary tale about the allure of fabricated success and the ultimate cost of living a lie. When the Q&A portion began, a student asked, "Do you think you deserved a second chance?" Michael considered this carefully. "I don't think second chances are about deserving them. They're opportunities offered by people who see potential for growth. What matters is what you do with that opportunity." Another student followed up. "Has your relationship with your mother recovered?" At this, Michael smiled. "That's a journey still in progress. But I can say that for the first time in years, it's built on truth. And there's incredible freedom in that." After the panel concluded, I waited in the hallway while Michael spoke with students who had approached him with questions. Watching him engage with them, earnest, thoughtful, no longer performing, I saw glimpses of the authentic person emerging from beneath the facade he had maintained for so long. "Mom," he said, finally making his way to me. "Thanks for coming." "I wouldn't have missed it," I replied, giving him a quick hug. "You did well up there." "Very well." He nodded, some of his old confidence showing through, but tempered now with humility. "Professor Lewis wants me to speak to her ethics and business practice class next month." "That's wonderful, Michael." We walked together toward the exit. a more comfortable silence between us than had existed in years. "How's the community outreach program going?" I asked as we stepped outside. "Actually, really good. We're working with high school students from disadvantaged backgrounds, helping them prepare for college applications." He gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. "Turns out my talent for presentation can be used for something worthwhile after all." "You've always had gifts, Michael. Intelligence, charisma, determination. They just needed the right direction." We reached a small campus cafe and took a table outside, the autumn sunshine warming the air around us. "I got an email from Georgetown yesterday," he said after we had ordered coffee. "They want an interview for their education policy program." "That's wonderful news." "It's a start," he said cautiously. I was honest about everything on the application. My past deceptions, my current work. I included my letter from Limora withdrawing my application. "That couldn't have been easy." He shrugged. "Easier than living with lies." I learned that the hard way. Our coffee arrived, and for a moment we just sat in companionable silence, watching students cross the campus quad. "Mom," Michael said eventually, "there's something I've been wanting to ask you." "What is it?" "The cleaning job. Will you ever go back to it? Not as CEO, obviously, but I don't know, maybe volunteer somewhere? You always said it grounded you." The question surprised me. I've actually been thinking about that. Not cleaning specifically, but finding ways to stay connected to every level of Limora. I've started monthly lunches with employees from different departments, including our maintenance staff. He nodded, seeming satisfied with this answer. "That sounds like you." "What made you ask?" He considered the question. "I think I'm finally starting to understand what you were trying to teach me all along. That there's dignity in all work. That what matters isn't your title, but your integrity, your impact." "That's a valuable lesson," I said softly. "One I had to learn myself." "I have a long way to go," he admitted, "but I'm trying." That's all any of us can do, Michael. Try to be a little better today than we were yesterday. As we finished our coffee and prepared to part ways, Michael to his community program office and I to a waiting car that would take me to the airport for a business trip, he hesitated. "There's this dinner next week," he said, "for the community outreach mentors and some of the high school students we work with. Would you want to come? Not as the CEO of Limora, just as my mom." The invitation, so simple, yet so meaningful, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I'd be honored. "Great." He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Oh, and Mom? Wear whatever you want. The real you is more than enough." As I watched him walk away across the campus, I thought about our parallel journeys. My rise from cleaner to CEO had been built on embracing my authentic self, while Michael was only now discovering the power and freedom that came from dropping pretenses. The road ahead would still have its challenges. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild completely. But for the first time in years, I felt that we were both headed in the right direction, not on separate paths, but walking side by side, no longer hiding behind masks or lies. In the end, success isn't measured by titles or perceptions, but by the courage to stand firmly in your truth, whatever that truth may be.